Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I am Adebola Adeduba. The headlines. President Tinubu bans foreign trips by government officials. Nigeria deploys 157 soldiers to South Sudan on peacekeeping missions. Blinken arrives in Egypt amidst push for ceasefire in Gaza. Details shortly. President Bola Tinubu has banned Nigerian ministers, heads of agencies and other government officials from embarking on publicly funded foreign trips. The ban will last for 3 months in the first instance and will take effect on April 1st, 2024. And this was contained in a letter dated March 12th, 2024 and signed by the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, and addressed to the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, George Okuoma. The ban, according to the letter, was aimed at reducing the costs in governance. Tinubu added that government officials who intend to go on any publicly funded trip must seek and get presidential approval at least 2 weeks before embarking on any such trip. And moving on to another story, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has promised that the slain military personnel in Okuoma, a community in Ogalla South local government area of Delta State, will be conferred with national honors. He disclosed this at the breaking of the Ramadan fast in Abuja. The president said while oversight is essential for maintaining transparency and accountability in governance, excessive summoning of officials can disrupt operations and hinder service delivery to citizens. Addressing the gathering, the Commander-in-Chief commiserated with the military and families of the deceased, assuring that the dead victims would also get what he described as a befitting burial. He therefore urged lawmakers to show discretion in the exercise of their oversight functions. The Senate Joint Committee on Defense, Army, Navy, and Air Force on Wednesday held a close meeting with the nation's service chief over the recent killing of troops in Okuoma community, Bomadi local government area of Delta State. The meeting has in attendance the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Gwabin Musa, Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Lagbaja, Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan, and Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogalla. The meeting came to an end some minutes after 6 p.m.
The Senate had a resolution with respect to the killings that happened in Delta State of our military officers and men. And a joint committee was set up to investigate what happened. Joint Committee of Defense, Army, Navy, and Air Force. Consequently, we invited the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Naval Staff, and the Chief of Air Force. And we had an interaction with them. And we have been briefed of what happened, and this meeting was the first. We expect that we will also hold subsequent meetings when we'll have more and more information with respect to what has happened. But let me say this, the Senate particularly and the National Assembly stand solidly with our armed forces. We continue to support our armed forces, and I want to also assure Mr. President that he took the right step when he gave that direction and directive to our armed forces to fish out the perpetrators of this heinous and horrific crime by killing our officers and men in Okuoma.
The Executive Council of Urhobo Traditional Rulers and the Executive of Urhobo Progress Union worldwide have called on Delta State government to set up an independent truth commission to investigate the immediate and remote causes of the crisis between Okuoma in Ogalla South local government area and Okoloba in the local government area. And this was contained in a 7-point communique signed by the chairman of the Urhobo Traditional Rulers Council, Emmanuel Ogalla, during a joint meeting of both executive councils at the palace of the Uvwe monarch Airforce, a local government area of Delta State. The groups urged the Delta State government to provide a permanent solution to the crisis that affected the killing of 17 military personnel and the raising down of Okuoma community by soldiers on revenge mission.
We call on the President, His Excellency Mr. Bola Tinubu, GCFR, to prevail on the Nigerian Army to honor a round-table discussion that may be inaugurated by the Delta government to avoid future occurrences. 7, we call on our Ijaw traditional rulers to join hands with us, their colleagues, Urhobo traditional rulers, to work for sustainable peace on the Forcados rivers, particularly between the age-long neighbors of Urhobo and Ijaw communities, to achieve a sustainable peace in the area.
And joining me to unpack this is the National Secretary, retired members of Nigeria Armed Forces, Roy Ohigevia. Dr. Roy Ohigevia. Good afternoon from here, and happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
All right. How do you think there can be better civil-military relations, to reduce violence and protect soldiers?
Okay. The purpose for military-civil relations is to create that kind of rapport that will encourage the civilians to approach the military, because the military is an apparatus for the civilian protection, so you must build bridges that will encourage them, because from the military itself, we came from the civil, and after service, we are going back to the civil. So there is no need to encourage any kind of anarchy between the civilians. So we must look at the military veteran community who go back to reside among the people to become the spokesperson and encourage that kind of warm embrace that is necessary.
But do you think there are any specific factors, fueling violence in Delta State?
Yeah, there are. Not even one. Normally Nigerians have this cultural conflict. We also have economic conflict. Even the farmers' headers, it was blown up. It's also economic conflict. And in that Niger Delta area, we are very much aware of the oil and gas booming business, the illegal and the legal, and certain persons have been given authority to have a kind of representation of the government, which is not right, and they infringe on other people's space and other people's business also. So those things need to be looked at.
I know you talked about economic conflicts. You talked about the oil and gas, which seems to be in dispute in the Niger Delta, region. But talking about cultural conflict, could you expatiate?
Yes, when we talk about cultural conflicts, we know that there are certain laws, like in Lagos. Let's use Lagos, where most of us can use as a yardstick. When there is the festival, and they said people should not come out at certain time because of a festival, certain persons who are not from that environment will reject it, And if you go back to the Niger Delta area, there are very specific rules for their cultural representation. And once you want to discuss with them, you must come on board under their cultural expectation and discuss with them in that light. That is why we have local government chairmen, traditional rulers, and all these cascade down to representations in National Assembly and the Senate. These are people that should explain and create the rapport for cultural interaction.
Well, in the case of the conflict in Okuoma and also Urhobo in Delta State, allegations, reports we've seen, data shows is as a result of land use dispute. But how do you think, tensions can be de-escalated between the army and also Okuoma residents?
One of the problem about land use is the territorial integrity of Nigeria. We had land use crisis also with our neighbors, like Cameroon. When I joined the military, I was part of that engagement. So if local governments have land use issues, we used to have it in Benue, we used to have it in Delta, we used to have it in so many parts of the country where communities engage themselves in violence because of a piece of land or a demarcation. It is the representation of the federal government mapping that should declare that. And the history of that community must be put into perspective, because the elderly and the ancestors of that place, they have agreed on certain things that have created the original mapping of that place. If it's not captured in the government mapping, then it should be captured. The National Orientation Agency has a lot of roles to play. The history of Nigeria should be brought back to our schools. And if you want to improve the relationship of the military with the civilians, you must look at those that have entered from the civilians into the military and come out again. Those are the people that can communicate in the different languages of interaction.
Yes, well, let's talk about the military themselves and also residents of Okuoma community. What measures would you recommend to de-escalate tensions between the military and then residents of Okuoma community in Delta State?
Right now, both parties have expressed grievances, and there have been attacks on the military and retaliation by the military. I think that the military should immediately build a cell of covert operations to rout out the key participants. Even the Chief of Defense Staff, in one of his publications recently, said they know the people that were involved in that. So if they know, they should go after those specific people. Then those buildings and everything that have been destroyed, the military should be found in that community right now, trying to build back trust. What is the job of the Navy? Part of the job of the Navy is to engage our waterways, our riverine communities. I have not heard anything from the Navy concerning this transaction.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insight on the news, Dr. Roy Ohigevia. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure.
And still on security matters, the Nigeria Police Force has arrested 2 persons in the Federal Capital Territory who allegedly staged their kidnap to deceive their friends and loved ones. The FCT Commissioner of Police, while parading the suspect with others, says military uniforms, phones and others were recovered from them. Idong Joseph reports.
This latest arrest is coming on the heels of calm, which has come over the Federal Capital Territory. Among the suspects is a pregnant resident alleged to have staged her kidnap and demanded ransom from family members.
One Chidozie Oba, the one on that blue, arranged with a woman who is here, but she said the husband begged that he doesn't want her to be shown to you people. They arranged that she has been kidnapped. So after the arrangement, they called the husband and demanded for ransom. The husband paid 2 million naira.
This woman came in tears. Her recorded messages was there. She wanted to take care of some people that wanted to tarnish her image online. And right now, I've been able to help her save her own face, and my own face is now out. So that's the crazy part. I don't know why she's not here to answer your questions too.
In another bizarre twist, the police also paraded a National Youth Service Corps member for staging his own kidnap. He claimed to have done it to prank his girlfriend.
His brother reported kidnap case. We went into the case and we were able to get him in a hotel where he is chilling down.
If I knew that my brother is going to be this worried and go and start involving the police, I didn't even take it serious. It's just something I want to do to my girlfriend to see if she is going to really show care.
Another suspect paraded is a dismissed security personnel with military uniform. who specializes in robbing unsuspecting residents of their valuables.
And the men inside the halos followed them to Gishri, robbed them, and almost attempting to kidnap them off. They now raised alarm.
The FCT Commissioner of Police, while revealing that several items recovered from the suspects, says that they will soon be arraigned in courts. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idonk Joseph.
The Nigerian Army is deploying 157 soldiers to Sudan on the peacekeeping mission. The soldiers just completed pre-deployment training and set for a peacekeeping mission at Abyei in South Sudan. The Army authorities advised them to avoid sexual exploitation and drug trafficking, saying such acts could tarnish Nigeria's image. Nigerian Army's Chief of Operation, Major General Boniface Singen, gave the warning while addressing the troops at the graduation ceremony from their pre-deployment training at the Martin Luther Agwai International Leadership and Peacekeeping Center at Jaji in Kaduna State. The troops, who are of the Nigerian Company 2 to the United Nations Interim Security Force in Abyei, consisted of 15 officers and 142 soldiers. You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. The Labour Party National Executive Committee, led by Julius Abure, has described the picketing of the Labour Party headquarters in Utako area of the Federal Capital Territory by members of the Nigeria Labour Congress as abuse of the law. In a press briefing in Asaba, Delta State capital, the chairman of the party said that the NLC does not own the Labour Party. He said that the Congress is being used by some powerful persons to destabilize the party. Secretary of Labour Party, Abayomi Arabambi, joined me on the news to talk about this.
We are against the position of the NLC calling for the resignation of Abure. From the point of law, it is not today that Abure was restrained by the FCTI court in March last year, no, April 5th. But the same Joajeru that came, to the party secretariat to tell Abure to hold on and not to obey that law, that was when he was removed by the court. But today, when the Court of Appeal now came about to say, oh, we are lifting that order, which we have filed an appeal, a motion for stay of execution of that and or such order, it is now wrong for Joajeru to come because he passed a vote of confidence on Abure. When a court of confidence jurisdiction passes, restraining, he came to pass vote of confidence. But now that appeal court set aside the judgment of the FCTI court, he's not coming around against the pass vote of no confidence. We are not babies that can be pushed around like that.
The Nigerian Senate has passed a Students' Loan Access to Higher Education Bill for 2024. The bill, which scaled first, second, and third readings in both parliamentary sittings, became law on Wednesday. The Senate's resolution followed its consideration of the report of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Tech Fund. President Bola Tinubu had last week written to the Senate and the House of Representatives seeking the repeal of the student loan bill and to enact a new one. On the repayment of loans by the beneficiaries, the bill stipulates that beneficiaries of the fund shall begin as soon as the beneficiary becomes employed in any capacity.
To repeal the Student Loans Access to Higher Education Act 2023 and enact the Student Loans Access to Higher Education Act 2024 to establish the Nigerian Education Loan Fund as a body corporate to receive, manage, and invest funds to provide loans to Nigerians for higher education, vocational training, and skills acquisition, and for related matters 2024, third reading taken and passed.
Reactions have continued to trail the recent ban on some schools in Abia State by the West African Examination Council from being used as examination centers. Residents are worried about this development, even as the state government has threatened to withdraw the approval licenses. Commissioner for Education in the state, Professor Emma Uche, told journalists in Umuahia that the undisclosed affected schools were recently delisted by the examination body for examination malpractice in previous West African secondary school certificate examinations. News Central's Chiwo Gele has more.
The 2023-2024 West African Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination is barely 2 months away from now. Yet the Examination Council has declared some schools which have fully concluded registration for the examination unfit.
A school that involves in exam malpractice should be identified long ago and action taken.
But my worry is what happens to the students that are already registered and about to sit for the examination. I expect the government to quickly intervene and find alternative schools.
The offense of the schools is alleged examination malpractice, which the Commissioner for Education, Professor Emma Uche, frowned at.
IEC has sent a list of schools that they recognize as a result of exam malpractices.
And we are going to withdraw your license to operate. You understand? So that they will stop this and stop giving out a bad name.
In October 2023, reports had it that Abia State had emerged the best performing secondary school in the West African Senior Secondary School examination, but was quickly countered by the Examination Council in a widely publicized disclaimer, which read in parts, "For the avoidance of doubt, the West African Examinations Council does not rank the performance of states in its examination. This we have stated always." With a new development, stakeholders in the education sector are concerned that there is no mechanism to check the menace.
So they are part of the corrupt system. That's why you see these, they call it exam malpractice. That is what the corruption in the school system is there. The government officials are involved, the parents are involved, the students are involved, everyone is involved.
And then government should make sure that these students do not suffer any inhibition because of the listing. It is the headship of schools that involve these children in exam malpractices.
What becomes the fate of these teenagers who have not only put in the parents' resources to register for the examination, but also invested their time in preparation for it? In Umuahia for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
In a bid to strengthen diplomatic relations between Ghana and Nigeria, the Vice President of Ghana, Muhammadu Buhari, paid a visit to the Sheikh of Borno, Alhaji Abubakar Umar Garbai El Kanami, at his palace in Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State. The Ghanaian Vice President, Muhammadu Buhari, was accompanied to the palace of the Sheikh by Borno State Governor and the renowned business mogul, Muhammadu Ndimi. News Central's Umaru Kirawa has details.
A cheering salutation all to welcome Ghanaian Vice President Muhammadu Buhari to the ancient city of Maiduguri at the Sheikh of Borno's palace. During his visit, Vice President Muhammadu, who is an economist and banker, discussed various matters of mutual interest with the Sheikh of Borno, known for his influential role in promoting peace and unity within Nigeria and beyond.
The Borno Empire, the Borno Kingdom, one of the longest existing kingdoms on the continent. I cherish very much the relationship between our two countries, Ghana and Nigeria. And I'm so happy that we will continue to build these bonds.
The historic visit is crucial for both nations as it paves the way for stronger diplomatic ties which citizens of both nations have been enjoying.
I was glad to be hosted by the executive governor, Professor Zulu, and we had a very, very nice chat. He told me about his old English teacher from Ghana, Charles, that we are going to look for. It tells you how close we are.
The meeting signifies the commitment of both Ghana and Nigeria in working together towards shared goals.
We maintain very good cordial relationship with all our people, including those people, they call it settlers, who came to Borno for doing their business.
The traditional leader appreciated Ghanaian authorities for allowing large number of its citizens to travel down to Nigeria to participate in the recently concluded First Kanem-Borno Cultural Summit, which he emphasized will deepen ties.
Nigeria and Ghana are two black nations that are championing the crusade for the growth and development of Africa in the whole world. The relationship between the government of Nigeria and government of Ghana need not to be over-emphasized.
As Ghanaian Vice President concludes his visit to Maiduguri, the hope remains that his efforts will result in strengthened ties and increased collaboration between the two countries. From the Shehu of Borno's Palace in Maiduguri, for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
Coming up, South Africa celebrates Human Rights Day in honor of apartheid regime victims. We have details after the break. Join us again. South Africa is commemorating the 2024 Human Rights Day. It is a day observed annually on March 23rd that reminds the country of the painful past where scores of people who were protesting against the unjust past laws were killed by the apartheid regime in Sharpeville and Langa. This year's Human Rights Day commemoration is held under the theme 3 Decades of Respect for and Promotion of Human Rights by recognizing the human rights activists and defenders who fought for human rights. And to speak more on this, I'm joined live on the news by Henk Boshoff, Commissioner at the South African Human Rights Commission. Good afternoon from here. It's a pleasure to have you join me.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to join you. Thank you.
All right. Talk to me about the significance of Human Rights Day in South Africa.
Well, Human Rights Day is commemorated every year on the 21st of March as a reminder of the sacrifices that accompanied the struggle for the attainment of democracy in South Africa. You have referred to the incidents in Sharpeville and Langa, and that obviously is one of the main reasons why we are commemorating Human Rights Day in South Africa. And today also provides an opportunity to reflect on the progress we have made as a country with regards to the promotion and protection of human rights in South Africa.
But so far, how has human rights evolved in South Africa since the end of apartheid?
Well, significant progress has been made in South Africa. There's obviously equal opportunities in the country. We are working towards equality in the country, but there are still some serious challenges in the country as well. We are only 30 years into democracy, and we are still facing some challenges with regards to the attainment of human rights in South Africa. And we have a very high crime rate in South Africa at the moment. There are some very significant service delivery challenges in South Africa, especially at local government level, at municipal level, where people still lack access to a basic human right like the provision of water. There is some issues with sanitation as well, and then obviously we have some challenges with regards to the provision of electricity, and the government is working very hard to address that. Racism remains a challenge in the countries, as is equality. Some academics and political commentators have mentioned that South Africa is the most unequal country in the world, So those are issues that we need to work on. But it's a much better place, South Africa, than it was in pre-1994.
Hank, I hear you when you talk about, equality for human rights in South Africa. You talked about racism still being in full gear in South Africa. But how about your constitution? How does it protect and promote human rights for your citizens?
Well, the Bill of Rights is one of the most important chapters in the Constitution. Chapter 2 deals with the Bill of Rights, and there's a variety of rights that have been enshrined in the Constitution. And then you have a constitutional body like the South African Human Rights Commission that has the mandate to promote respect for human rights, to promote the protection of human rights, and we also monitor and assess the observance of human rights. So with regards to protecting human rights and using the Constitution, which is our superior law in South Africa, human rights have been enshrined in the Constitution. It is just how we ensure, as a watchdog body, as the Human Rights Commission, but also as government, to ensure that human rights are respected, promoted, and protected in South Africa.
I know you talked about the Human Rights Commission, but just elaborate for me, what has been their role so far in promoting or protecting human rights in South Africa?
Yeah, the Human Rights Commission has quite a wide mandate in terms of not only the Constitution, but also our own act, the South African Human Rights Commission Act. So our main objective is to promote respect for human rights, as I've indicated, to promote protection, to monitor and assess the observance of human rights. So what we do is we make recommendations to state organs to strengthen, the promotion, the protection of human rights. So where we identify some shortcomings, we would make recommendations to state organs. Where there are serious violations, we would also immediately investigate and make recommendations to state organs. We undertake studies, empirical academic studies, to also advise government, state organs on how to promote and protect human rights. A number of education programs have been rolled out, and we have close liaison with other bodies that have similar responsibilities to what we have. We also, review policies of government, and where we identify that there are some shortcomings in the policies, we recommend that those policies be amended. And then with regards to proposed legislation that will go to our parliament, we monitor proposed legislation. And if we identify certain provisions that are contrary to Chapter 2, that is the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, we then obviously also advise Parliament on how they can amend legislation or amend the draft legislation.
Well, thank you so much for your insight on the news. Henk Boshoff, Commissioner at South African Human Rights Commission. Thank you once again.
Only a pleasure.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Egypt on the second leg of his latest regional tour, which includes visits to Saudi Arabia and Israel as he attempts to broker a ceasefire in the war in Gaza. The trip is a sixth to the Middle East since the Israel-Hamas war began on 7th of October. Blinken said the United States circulated a draft UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire linked to the release of hostages in the Gaza Strip. Key Israel backer, the United States, has vetoed previous UN Security Council votes on the nearly 6-month war, objecting as recently as in February to the use of the term immediate in a draft submitted by Algeria. And now let's talk business. Tier 1 bank in Nigeria, Access Bank, is acquiring the National Bank of Kenya from a KCB group, its second expansion into Kenya's financial sector in under 5 years. It had bought Transactional Bank Limited in 2019, and this is the Nigerian lender's second acquisition in Kenya. Access Holdings Secretary Sunday Ekochi announced in a statement filed on the Nigerian Exchange Limited on Wednesday that the deal's finalization is contingent upon receiving regulatory approvals from the central banks of Kenya and Nigeria. And joining me on the news to talk about this is Aziz Lawal, Managing Director, Trust Bank Asset Management Limited. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
All right. Are you surprised in any way this acquisition is happening weeks after the death of the first GCEO?
Yeah, thank you for that question. The question it's interesting, right? Because I'm not sure I can answer that without mixed feelings, right? But straight to the question. Access Bank is the biggest bank in Nigeria by asset size, right? And they have robust corporate governance by implication, right? And you'd expect that you also have succession planning. So it's not really coming at a surprise, particularly when we take it from the words of the group CEO, the current CEO, right? That Bomadi Agbede, where she said that it's a significant step in the execution of the bank's 5-year plan, of the group's 5-year plan. So what that tells you that, and typically for acquisitions like this, the conversation, they must have started a conversation months before. It could even be a year before. Some of these acquisition conversations, they take years sometimes, right? So what implies is that, this is not a conversation that Agbede herself started, right? Or rather, it must have been started by Herbert himself, Mary Expense Base, right? So yeah, so in context, so to answer your question directly, so it's not really coming at a surprise, but rather this acquisition will further cement his legacy and vision for the group. Thank you.
Now, the KCB's group CEO, and that's Paul Russo, affirmed that Access Bank will acquire the whole stake in a deal he deemed beneficial for NBK's future. Do you agree with this?
Yeah, again, I'll go to the words of Agbaje, right, where she said that the balance sheet size of the bank itself is well over $1.1 billion, right? So again, it's going to be beneficial to the bank because that's the National Bank of Kenya now, because if you judge by today's valuation, if you take the value of that bank in value it in Naira terms, it probably will come to around 1.7 trillion. But at the 9 months, the total asset of, for context now, the total asset of Access Bank is well over 21 trillion, right? So it's definitely will be beneficial to the bank because now they are now part of a much bigger bank. So either way, it's beneficial to the National Bank of Kenya and a very good acquisition for Access Bank. Thank you.
Well, let's talk about benefits. I'd like you to expatiate a bit more for Nigeria. How have these of benefits for Nigeria, this kind of transaction, if you could elaborate much more on how it benefits Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Like I mentioned earlier, Access Bank is the biggest bank in Nigeria by asset size. At the 9 months, their total assets are around 21 trillion, right? and there is a 5-year strategic plan. So there is a target they're trying to meet, right? And part of that strategy is the fact that they want the access the group, the corporation now to be the gateway, Africa's gateway to the world, right? So they have that strategy to dominate Africa. So I mean, and starting with East Africa, because again, and I better also mention that is an opportunity to scale up. To significantly scale up the groups present in East Africa. So ultimately, that will benefit Nigeria because whatever Access is doing in terms of taking a major stake or controlling a major market within East Africa is an extension of the dominance of Nigerian banks. So to improve our confidence, we will also benefit from it because don't forget that some Nigerians now will be recruited to work in that National Bank of Kenya. So it's a major positive for Access Corporation, the group, and of course to Nigeria. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your business insight, Aziz Lawal. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much for always having me. Thank you.
And now to sports stories. A total of 17 goals were scored as match day 10 of the Nigeria Women Football League unfolded, showcasing thrilling encounters across various venues. Edo Queen delivered an impressive performance, securing a commanding 4-1 win over Rivers Angels. Goodness Osigwe's hat-trick and Amara Honora's goal paved the way for Edo Queen's victory, while Peace Effiong scored Rivers Angels' solitary goal. In Owerri, Heartland Queens secured a narrow 1-0 victory over Nasarawa Amazons, with Mary Lucky converting a penalty in the 84th minute to clinch the win. Edo and Conference Queens head coaches commended their charges for playing according to a game plan. Team Nigeria secured their 11th consecutive gold medal in the women's 4x100 meter relay at the 13th African Games. The world record holder, Toby Amushon, and the team blazed through the track in 43.05 seconds, narrowly missing the game record set back in 2003 by just 0.01 seconds. They left Liberia and host Ghana trailing behind in second and third places respectively. Toby Amushon joined forces with Justina Eyakobeyan, Olajide Olayinka, and 4 Abinusuwa to claim victory for Nigeria.
Away, the final of the 4x100 meter relay. The Ghanaians are off to a really great start, but so are the Liberians as well. And for Liberia, it's Ebony Lee running really well. The changeover is smooth. The Ghanaians are coming through for Mensah. Mensah is running great, but so is Nigerians Olajide as well. But look at Liberia, strong changeover. Oh, the changeover is not smooth for Liberia, but the Nigerians are off on the inside lane. Right now, for Nigeria, is Forhan. Forhan has the lead. She's running incredibly. Hands over to Toby Amusan. There's no catching her. Hohality of Ghana is chasing shadows. Look at Liberia's ankle leg. Is Carrie Josephine and Hohality for second. But Nigeria takes the gold. Liberia with the silver. The Amazon. The Express has brought Nigeria home. That is how you run an ankle leg.
In a thrilling showdown in the men's 4x100 meter relay, Team Nigeria outpaced their West African rivals Ghana by a margin of 2 microseconds to seize gold at the 2023 African Games in Accra. The quartet comprised of Sunday Israel Okon, Ekanem Consider, Akintola Alaba, Olukunle, and Ishekiri Oshoriche avenged their defeat against their Ghanaian counterparts who had snatched the gold medal 5 years ago in Rabat, Morocco. With a swift time of 38.41 seconds, Nigeria executed flawless baton exchanges, particularly from the third leg to the anchor leg, which was anchored by Oshoriche per the African Games. Ishekiri Oshoriche spoke to the media after the win.
Good, I feel excited. Never won a gold medal. This is my first international gold medal, senior gold medal, and I'm happy with it. It feels really good. I just want to keep getting this color. That's all I want. I just kept going. I was holding it, was coming, it was pressing through. But in me, I was like, I want this, Joseph. I wanted it more than the Ghanaian guy. I said that was how I wanted it.
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. President Tinubu has suspended foreign trips by government officials. Nigeria has deployed 157 soldiers to South Sudan on peacekeeping mission. We also told you that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Egypt amidst push for ceasefire in Gaza. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba.